Today was scheduled. Oh, thank you so much, Carlos. Um, One administrative item we need to take care of before we kick off the meeting, since this is the date of our regularly scheduled monthly meeting for the commission, is we are having the election of our new chair and vice chair. I've served as chair for the first year and have been very fortunate to have Dalvin as vice chair. It's been really great to have this partnership between the two of us. And Dalvin is also running to be chair for next year, and Nadia Salazar is running to be vice chair for the next year. I believe we do have a quorum of the commission present, even though I don't think everyone is here. But just because I know we want to get to the hearing as soon as possible, let's go ahead with the vote right now. Since there are just two candidates, in the interest of time, I'll just have the commissioners vote as a slate. So if you'd like to approve of the election of Dalvin Osorio as chair for the upcoming year and Nadia Salazar as vice chair for the upcoming year, please go ahead and enter your vote into the chat. Make sure it's set so that it's set to everyone, so it is a public vote. And just yes or approve if you want to go ahead with those two candidates. No if you want to vote against it, and as always, you can choose to abstain.
We're entering that now, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm on my phone and I don't see chat, but I'll vote yes. This is Vernon.
Thank you, Vernon. And I think with Vernon's vote, that is 7 of us. That is a quorum of the commission. So I know some folks are still figuring out their chat, but for now, I'm very pleased to announce that Dalvin and Nadia are our officers for the next year. Nadia, would you like to say something?
Sure. First of all, thank you all so much, the community members who are present. I think your input is valuable as we go on. As we shared on our statements previously, we have lots of plans that we hope that we get to this year, along with having some clarity around our communication with the council and figuring out how we can be most effective for these policies that our community are asking for and that we want to support. With that being said, I'm going to have the time commitment and I've been and talk with Dalvin. We have a great relationship, so I'm super excited to work with him and to work with all of you as well. But I did want to announce something toward the end of the year. I might miss a meeting or two. I'm due December 22nd this year. So I will be out for a couple of weeks, but I will be as present as possible from wherever I'm at. So with that said, we'll have Baby Price and Zelaya as members of the commission. So I'm really excited to work with all of you and continue to do everything we've been doing. And I'm incredibly grateful, and a huge, huge hug to Madam Chair, who has led us this entire year and paved the way for us to do more work.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Nadia. I know Dalvin is having some connectivity issues. Dalvin, are you here with us right now? And if not, we can come back to you in a second. Oops. We'll come back to Dalvin in a second. We'd love to. Oh, are you there?
That's me. And I'm trying.
Okay. I think that worked, Vernon. Thank you so much. All right. So we'll come back to Dalvin and just. Oh, Dalvin, are you here now?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Congratulations. Would you like to say something?
I'm sorry. What I missed what you were saying before. So
No worries. We just had a quorum vote, and Nadia just shared a few words with us, and also the excellent news that along with Baby Price, we'll have another baby joining us on the commission for our second year. So also wanted to kick it over to you if you wanted to say a few words about being chair for next year.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So first off, I wanted to highlight a couple of things that Miss Rivers mentioned to Shabab and I when she interviewed us. She wanted to make sure to pass on the fact that she's blown away at the work that you guys have done. And I know that sometimes that doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like we've done a lot, but there's people watching the work that we've done, and they wanted to highlight just the incredible work that you all have done. And I know Nadia and I are just excited to work with you guys over the next year, and in part because of just the incredible work that you guys have done. And I could not be more excited to do this work with you guys. So I'm super pumped, and I hope you guys are too.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dalvin. And with that, we'll very quickly move into the hearing itself. As folks know, tonight we're having our first ever public hearing. And in his capacity as current vice chair, Dalvin is very kindly moderating this hearing for us. So over to you, Mr. Chair-elect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on this balmy Monday evening in Montgomery County. We couldn't be more thrilled to have the turnout that we have. We're looking forward to hearing from all of you tonight. I think this is a really good first step in what we hope is going to be a series of conversations, both with community members, with MCPD, with us, in different capacities to try to, reimagine and improve what public safety should look like, right? I think the most important thing, and my vice chair-elect and I have both agreed that this community, there are a lot of really amazing things that go on in this community, and a lot of the best ideas that have come for this county have come from community members. They're not from your regular elected folks who are in these rooms. It's from regular folks who rush out of work to try to make it to a PTA meeting, or who try to make sure that they submit testimony for some of these things. And so as Shabab and I were reviewing the list of folks who would testify plus the submitted testimony, we were just blown away at a lot of the experiences that folks shared. And it's our hope that we can take your experiences, what you share with us today, along with what you've shared with us during the last year, and sit down with MCPD and be able to craft some actual policy change, right? Because one of the things that my mentor always said to me is programs are fleeting, but policy is power, right? And if we can channel this energy and all of your experiences into tangible policy, I think we're going to be in really, really good shape. Carlos, if you would be so kind as to just message me the list of the folks who are speaking so I know who to call on in order, that would be great. And we will get started in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to express the gratitude to have you guys all here tonight, to being able to communicate with us and being able to share your experience with us. So thank you very much. There we go. Okay. All right. So we are going to start. And Captain Pruitt, are you on the line? You're our first speaker.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
How you doing, Captain Pruitt? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for the honor of being able to speak. Let me pull up my written words so I won't lose my place. So thank you for allowing my testimony. My name is Sonia Pruitt, and I'm a retired Montgomery County Police Captain, the founder of the Black Police Experience, and a resident of Maryland. I'm strongly in support of declining to arrest or prosecute for simple drug possession in Montgomery County. I spent 28 years as a police officer and retired as the first African-American woman to attain the rank of captain in the 99-year history of the department. Because of that nuance, I had a unique vantage point, as all Black officers do, in how the policing of minor drug offenses affects the trust between the community and the police. As a Black officer, you have your finger on the pulse of the community, which has been the most affected and vocally outraged about disparate treatment from the police. I feel, as the Black community at large feels, that simple possession of drugs, specifically marijuana, remains one of the single most abused and racially charged criminal offenses that affects especially Black men and youth in this country. In 2018, a 23-year-old Black man from Silver Spring was arrested by Montgomery County Police after walking an intoxicated neighbor home to ensure he got there safely. His name is Samir Ahmed. Mr. Ahmed was stopped by police officers, one of whom said he smelled of marijuana. Mr. Ahmed attempted to explain that he had just helped the neighbor get home. For his Good Samaritan act, he was arrested, handcuffed, and charged with resisting arrest, failure to obey a reasonably lawful order, obstructing and hindering, and disorderly conduct. All this because he allegedly smelled of marijuana, had what the police said was a small amount of weed on him, and because he loudly protested how he was being treated. The video went viral nationwide as a shining example of police overreach. The arrest affected his business and destroyed his family's, and the community's trust in the police. I have other observations that I cannot share in detail because of the time constraint. Stories of how officers were upset about the Maryland decriminalization of marijuana in October of 2014, fearing they were losing an investigative tool. Or how I witnessed drivers charged with paraphernalia for having no more than an unidentified seed or flaky leaves on the floorboard of their vehicles. Or how I shared tours of duty with officers who seemed to smell marijuana each time we stepped up to a car, especially cars where there were Black occupants. I don't believe the automobile exception to the Fourth Amendment was meant to be used as a free-for-all to get into the vehicles of every person an officer stops. But when there are officers who believe the myth that Black people smoke the most marijuana, I have heard that said more than once by officers, it leaves policing ripe for what's called noble cause corruption arrest, where the ends unlawfully justifies the means, where there are blue double standards based on race, and where the civil rights and protections of a category of people is dismissed for what should be treated as a public health issue, much like opioids. There is no evidence that petty arrests for possession have yielded lower crime rates or have been very impactful in serious or violent crime. That is where policing should be focused. What we do know is that charges for simple possession of drugs has yielded unnecessary criminal records, which leads to barriers in housing and jobs and is a direct pipeline into the already Black and brown heavy prison industrial complex. So I end with this. Policing morality in this country has never worked. Our criminal justice system should be helping to protect people from people, not people from themselves, which is the job of family, church, and the education and healthcare systems. So for the sake of equity and justice in Maryland and the country at large, I support declining to arrest or prosecute for simple drug possession in Montgomery County. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Captain Pruitt, and thank you for your years of service. I hope you're enjoying retirement. I hope it's treating you well.
It is, thank you.
No problem. Now we will go to Carly Ann Ponder. Do you see them on the list, Carlos? Carly Ann Ponder? I don't see them in the participants list.
No, I don't see Miss
Okay.
Ponder.
Okay, so we'll come back around. David Atkinson, you're next.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep, there you go. Welcome, Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you. So I'll just try to keep short as well. My name is David Atkinson. I live in Silver Spring. I'm testifying with Young People for Progress, which is a community organization organizing with social justice organizing for young people under 35 in Montgomery County. And we're striving to create power among youth and young adults through engaging on issues and voter education, and as well as civic issues. So I just wanted to, I support the first testimony as well. I think that due to the stigma and retaliation attached to being arrested for any drug charge or police interaction, there is a process that we've created called the Police Incident Documentation Project, where people can report anonymously police interaction. And we've been able to compile some of our members and other young people's experiences with police interaction. And so here's some of the things that came from that to understand the impact that these interactions have created. We have one person reported an incident of basically someone was repeatedly approached and followed by police in this county, and they asked if they knew about certain kids selling drugs in their area. And they repeatedly informed that the police they repeatedly informed that police officer that they didn't know anyone selling drugs, but they kept on being approached and they felt threatened when approached by that police, despite the fact that they were saying the police were saying they just wanted to keep the streets safe, but actually the police continually approaching and her in that way made them feel unsafe. We have another instance in Tacoma Park where people were just hanging out with their friends, eating, smoking, but they noted that the two who were chased by police and caught were not smoking anything illegal. They said that Montgomery County police didn't know how to handle situations, just jumping to conclusions, and this led them to not want to be an officer. We know that there's some differences in policing, but still there's a lot of shared training and things like that with some of the Montgomery County and some of the local police groups. There's been other instances that we know about that are more public, like the murder of Homina Cron. And while this was at the hands of Gaithersburg police, we know that most officers receive their training from Montgomery County Police and collaborate consistently. There hasn't been any accountability, and this makes us skeptical as an organization when it comes to Montgomery County Police enforcing drug laws. And we don't believe that marijuana possession should be a reason for a potentially deadly encounter with law enforcement or potential imprisonment. Another example of Fanon Berhe didn't give me confidence in officers' ability to hold other officers accountable. Seeing Sergeant David Cohen go in discipline, in any serious discipline when he murdered someone, he seems so intent on shooting, judging by this my non-expert opinion based on looking at the body camera evidence. It made me think there isn't still that much of a system of accountability for officers. Along with that, we know that Montgomery County Police's 2020 use of force report is disproportionately high use of force on Black people. Other incidents YPP has, people in the police incident project have mentioned were invasive pat down, officer forcing himself into someone's room, but left once he realized it was recorded, accusation of thievery to student experiencing homelessness resulting in PTSD, unprovoked physical force in McDonald's, and more. So we know at the end of their Montgomery County Police's 2020 force report, they say the public expects and deserves culture of transparency, accountability, fairness, trust, and respect. And every member of this department is held accountable for their actions. And in today's environment of heightened public expectations and scrutiny of police departments, it is important to emphasize that regardless of how well the department believes it's behaving its mission, it's fulfilling its mission, the ultimate measure of success is how well the department is able to earn and sustain the trust and respect of the community of Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Carly Ann Ponder now. Ms. Ponder, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I apologize.
No worries. How are you, Ms. Ponder?
Very good. I have a state in addition to food in my mouth. I have a statement for on behalf of the Silver Spring Justice Coalition that I plan to submit also in written form before tonight's forum ends. I will go ahead and read some of that.
Sounds good. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
The Silver Spring Justice Coalition believes Montgomery County's drug enforcement practices alone and in combination with its traffic stop practices is a source of over-policing of our Black and Brown community members. With the advent of social media, citizens have videotaped egregious stops by police, and local news outlets have brought them to the attention of the public. We applaud this body, the Policing Advisory Commission, for offering the local community a much needed forum to discuss encounters with members of the Montgomery County Police Department. According to MCPD's 2019 Crime and Safety Report, 91% of all drug offenses are for simple possession and 75% of all drug offenses are for marijuana. It is outrageous that MCPD is concentrating its drug enforcement resources on marijuana when possession of 10 grams or less is not even a crime. In Maryland, like many other states, is on a path to decriminalizing marijuana altogether. The law governing when police can stop and search people in places based on the odor of marijuana continues to change, narrowing the scope of permissible police conduct. Recently, courts in Maryland have issued rulings changing police powers when marijuana is suspected. In April 2021, the Maryland Court of Appeals ruled that the smell of marijuana no longer justified an officer approaching and questioning a person in non-traffic stops based on suspicion of possession of drugs, citing the fact that less than 10 grams of marijuana is no longer a crime in the state. However, traffic stops and vehicle searches can still be conducted on the basis of an odor of marijuana. Based on the data, such stops are often racially disproportionate. We took our data from the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force that was convened by the county executive in late last year, 2020. We urge this body to delve into the report that was issued by the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force, if you haven't already done that. There's very good information, including statistics there, such as data on traffic stops by race, ethnicity, and gender show that Black male drivers have the highest rate of traffic stops at 38%. Black drivers overall account for 27% of traffic stops, despite Black residents accounting for only approximately 20% of the population in Montgomery County. To save time, I will just skip down and point you to some of the highly publicized cases that have caused harm here in Montgomery County. The county is facing a lawsuit after holding a grandmother and her family, including a 2-year-old, on the side of the road for more than an hour. They deployed canines to the scene to search for drugs. More than an hour later, nothing was found on the family. And the family has sued for damages. That same year, an officer was recorded using the N-word while she and other officers harassed a group of young men at a McDonald's in White Oak. The officer said they smelled marijuana on the men. Young men patted them down and issued civil citations for possession of less than 10 grams to 2 of the men. And like I said, having 10 grams or less is not a crime in the state of Maryland. But because of what happened to that young man and police involvement, they actually lost their jobs. They lost their employment, right, as a result of the cops, saying they smell the odor of marijuana and patting them down and that. So I would encourage this body again to take a look at the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force to go over some of those very high-profile cases that have occurred here in Montgomery County. The Silver Spring Justice Coalition has information on all of those. We've issued press releases, and in many cases, we've held protests. So if you'd like additional information in that regard, I'd be happy to help you. Awesome. I will also submit our statement in written form. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
No, and thank you, Ms. Ponder. Thank you so much. We're now going to go to Isabella Wise.
Got it. So there we go. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Isabella.
Hi. Hi, my name is Isabella Wise. I'm a resident of Montgomery County. I've been here in the Gaithersburg, Germantown area for the past 20 years. I'm a community leader and I'm also a community advocate. I went to Gaithersburg High School, and I remember I had a really good relationship with my police officer in my school, but I don't know any other good police officers as good as he was until this day. It's been 20 years. So when I was 16, I remember being a big troublemaker, gang involved. I was a foster child, and I was a pregnant teenager, had my daughter at the age of 16. I was harassed by the police multiple times because I was hanging out with my friends. And, every time you see how I look to me, and until this day, it still continues to be when you see Black and Hispanics hanging out, you automatically trouble. So we were kicked out of multiple places like the park or McDonald's. My friends were searched multiple times because they smelled like marijuana, but no one ever got arrested. And the reason why was because they didn't have marijuana on them. But the problem is, and the thing that people don't see in Montgomery County is that Sometimes you live in a household that people do smoke marijuana, but you don't. So how can you control what your parents do when you're a teenager? So police never saw that, right? They just like automatically, they want to call your parents, they're searching everybody down. So, I mean, that was really traumatizing for me and my friends. And, this is the reason why now I work with a lot of teenagers and I try to educate them on what it means, like, put on some perfume, you gotta like prevent to get pulled over by the police because you are gonna get searched even if you don't have marijuana. So that being said, I'm also here to speak in behalf of my husband who was pulled over one time, and the police officer couldn't find a reason on why he pulled him over. So he asked if he has drugs, searched the whole car, hold him at gunpoint. And at some point, it just got so bad that he was just like, why are you carrying a pocket knife? So just trying to find a reason to just arrest him. The second time, my husband was just waiting for the bus at the bus stop, had his headphone on, and there was guns everywhere because he fit the profile, whatever it means, right? Like, I guess I don't know what fitting the profile is. This is 20 years ago and nothing has changed. So 20 years ago, we didn't have social media like we do now. So we don't know about these cases, right? We don't know about 20 years ago cases. We know about what's going on right now. But these incidents are gonna carry with us for the rest of our lives. And, like nothing was done. And I wish that we had a better relationship with the police now. And, like, why just because you smell like marijuana, you're not for searching me because I smell like marijuana. So I do think that we need to like make sure that we train the officers to de-escalate situations and not like get worked out about someone just smelling like weed because like just because you smell like it, that doesn't mean you're carrying it. We also need to educate our youth because like they need to know like, hey, if you're carrying this, you are gonna get arrested because of whatever reason, because sometimes police just finds a reason. And yes, like as a community leader and a community advocate, I know so many people that has been arrested and have also just gotten stopped for no reason, just because you smell like weed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabella. Thank you. Thank you. Miguel Oliveros, I'll go to you now. You're up. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to share something good from our MCPD. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the members of the commission for allowing me to share my experience. My name is Miguel Oliveros, and I am Montgomery County resident. I want to share my testimony of how important was in my life the Citizen Academic for Hispanic community. I am originally from Peru, and I came to this country 6 years ago. And the first thing what I did was look for community associations to establish links. Through a Hispanic friend, the first place I found was the training of the Citizen Academic for Hispanic community. They instructed me in everything related to the work of our police in the community, such as domestic violence, crime, criminal drugs, gangs, and things like that. After the class, I began attending monthly graduate meetings. It was there that I met many important people from local government agencies and different community associations. I will only mention some of those that I am belong, and I did thanks to the apprenticeship I went to the Citizen Academy. I have been volunteering for over 4 years in a program called Truancy Prevention Program that comes from the State Attorney Office, John McCarthy. In this program, we go to the MCPS schools and talk to the students about illegal drugs use and how important is the education on their lives. I belong to the Maryland First Responder group, and I have been working there for almost 2 years as a volunteer. I was working hard during this pandemic. A year ago, I graduated as a chaplain, and it is a great organization that helps youth and adult people in hospital, prison, and anywhere where spiritual support is required. I am a Spanish-speaking community leader, and I talk a lot with young people to avoid and or minimize the use of illegal drugs. During the time of my ministry, I meet people who had problems with drugs, and I give them the necessary information. They communicate with the police officers, and there was a very positive change in them and in the environment. None of this would have been possible if the presence of the Spanish-speaking police officers, because they helped a lot for the communications. And lastly, please, we will need more Spanish-speaking officers to avoid and or minimize the use of illegal drugs in our country. I am undocumented, I'm a business owner, and a parent, and a volunteer who will always be at the service of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for sharing that. Ruby Wilson is next on the list. Ms. Wilson, are you here? All right, we'll come back. Teresa Wright.
I'm here.
There we go. Hi, Ms. Wright. How are you?
Fine, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again too.
Okay, well, I am a retired MCPS teacher and parent resource teacher. I was fortunate to have worked with SROs in the Gettysburg High School cluster and Watkins Smith cluster since the program started. SROs are a significant caring adult in our schools. Many of our students lack caring role models at home. SROs were always willing to take time and speak on one-to-one to students that I took to meet with them. In terms of career exploration, many students are interested in studying criminal justice, and SROs would share their personal story about how they became a police officer. SROs were always willing to talk to students. It was beneficial for students to engage with police officers with a similar cultural background. Another example of positive youth and police interaction were a series of youth police dialogues organized by Identity and the City of Gettysburg Recreation Department. Youth and police got a chance to get to know each other as human beings. They share a meal. SRO have often collaborated with us and parent outreach meetings and often came to talk to parents about safety and security in the community and took a lot of questions. I believe this is a very beneficial program, and SROs have been a key partner in providing resources and services to the community that I served so many years in MCPS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wright, and it's good to see you again. Ms. Wilson, are you there, Ms. Ruby Wilson? No. Okay. Ms. Pilar Munoz.
Estoy acá.
¿Cómo está? Welcome, bienvenido.
Gracias.
Señora, yo soy traductora. Yo le voy a ayudar.
Okay.
I'm a Spanish interpreter.
Okay, so we have an interpreter for Ms. Munoz. So, señora Munoz, usted habla primero y después la señora le traduce lo que usted dijo, ¿ok?
Ok, le agradezco.
Bienvenido.
Okay, gracias. Ok, mi nombre es Pilar Muñoz.
My name is Pilar Munoz.
Trabajo como cuidadora de niños y aspiro a tener mi propio daycare.
I work as a babysitter and I hope to have my own daycare.
Vivo en el condado de Montgomery County por más de 20 años.
I live in this live in Montgomery County for more than 20 years.
Me gustaría agradecer a la Comisión de Policía y al MNCPD por darme la oportunidad de estar acá dando mi testimonio.
I'd like to give my thanks to the Police Advisory Committee for giving me the opportunity to share my experiences with my MCPD.
También agradecer a Carlos Camacho, a Juan Jovel y a Bernard Gobar.
And I'd also like to give my thanks to Carlos Camacho, Juan Jovel, and ¿y quién más? Disculpa, Bernie.
Bernie Gobar.
And to Bernie Govar.
Mi testimonio es que tengo dos en verdad cortos.
My statements are, I have two short things to share.
Okay. El 1 de junio, una amiga me prestó su carro, se me pinchó la rueda.
On June 1st, my friend lent me the car and the tire got punctured.
Mi hijo y yo tratamos de cambiarla, pero el dispositivo para poner a subir el carro era muy bajo para que poder cambiar la rueda.
And I had to change the tire, but the tool that I had to change it was not high enough in order to change the tire.
Y una oficial se acercó a nosotros, nos preguntó qué pasaba, verificó la situación.
And an officer came up to us and asked us what was going on and verified the situation.
Y ella no tenía cómo ayudarnos, pero llamó inmediatamente un oficial que tenía la herramienta.
And she didn't have a way to help us, but she immediately called another officer who had the tools.
Y nos ayudaron muy cariñosa y eficientemente, rápidamente.
And she helped us very affectionately and efficiently and very quickly.
Tengo que decirles también que las pocas veces que yo he tenido contacto con la policía de Montgomery County ha sido solo para quererme ayudar y colaborar conmigo en lo que les he pedido.
I'd like to say that the few times that I've had contact with the police officers in Montgomery County, it has been help with wanting to help and with cooperation.
Yo vivo en Gettysburg y asistí a la academia de policía porque en el parque de mi vecindario vienen personas a jugar basquetbol.
I live in Gaithersburg and I try to help. Interpret clarification. Yo trato de ayudar a quién?
Perdón.
Que usted vive en Gaithersburg y trata de ayudar a quién?
En el parque muy
Okay.
cerca de mi vecindario.
And in the park that is very close to my neighborhood.
Vienen carros de diferentes estados como Virginia y otros vecindarios.
Cars come from various other states such as Virginia and from other areas.
Y juegan basquetbol solo por 10 o 15 minutos.
And they play basketball just for 10 or 15 minutes.
Y se van.
And they go.
Esta situación está desde 1999.
This situation has been going on since 1999.
Mi vecindario ha contactado el policía al número 301-279-800.
My neighbors and I have contacted the police at the number of 301-279-8000.
Y la policía nos ha ayudado.
And the police, I'm sorry.
Sí, nos ha ayudado.
And the police have helped us.
Yo asistí a la academia de policía hace 3 años y también expuse el caso.
I have participated with the the Hispanic Community Academy for 3 years.
Y ellos, los oficiales vinieron.
And the officers came.
El caso se resolvió por unos 6 meses.
And the case was resolved for some 6 months.
Pero después de ese tiempo, la situación continuó igual.
But after that time, the situation continued.
Por lo que a mí me gustaría
And what I would like
que visitaran más el sector y ese tipo de parques pequeños
that they come by and visit that sector and those kinds of small parks
para evitar la criminalidad y cuidar a nuestros niños de la comunidad.
to avoid criminality and to protect our children from that criminality.
Gracias por la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes.
And thank you for the opportunity to share with you.
Gracias a usted, doña, por participar con nosotros. Thank you, Madam Interpreter, for translating for us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this concludes our public hearing. We first would like to thank everybody who testified tonight. We know that these stories aren't easy to share generally, and so we're incredibly appreciative that you joined us tonight. If you have any additional comments to add, Carlos has put the link in the chat so that way you can submit public testimony still. We are grabbing that testimony and consolidating it all together. We'd like to thank you all for joining us, and we would like to ask all the commissioners to stay on just for 10 minutes, just so we can chat briefly after the public hearing. But thank you all so much for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your night.
Dalvin, is there an opportunity? I see one or two questions from the commissioners for our participants, for persons who testified. Is there any opportunity for that, or we don't have time?
What do we have? We have two questions, right, from Eric.
Yes.
Let's hold off on the questions. We'll circulate them back to the folks who testified. Okay.
Got you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Gracias.
De nada.
Buenas noches.
Pase buena noche.
Buenas noches y gracias.
Adiós, Bernadette.
Chao, chao.
Chao, chao.
Buenas noches a todos.
Igual, Miguel, igual.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Is the next one so that I can stay on as early for commissioners? Yeah, Dalvin, we have a comment. I guess, is the commission still meeting in a public forum?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll just wait for folks who aren't staying on for the public part to head out.
Okay.
This is not going to be a closed session to kind of put together what we heard tonight.
No, Mr. Ricks. Nadia and I just wanted to chat with you guys briefly, just to share some thoughts before we wrapped up, since we're not going to meet again for a little bit. Yeah, and we thank you, Eric.
So if this portion of the hearing or of our meeting is also public, then can we just proceed? I'm a little confused as to, what we're waiting for. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think we should just get started.
Yeah, no, we are. Yeah, I know there were some folks that weren't staying for that part, so I was giving them a chance to exit the meeting. Madam Chair, as your last 40 minutes on your term, do you want to take us home?
I'd love to hear from both you and Nadia for a second. Just to remind everyone, we are submitting our annual reports on July 1st to the council, and following that, we'll have in the place of our regular monthly meeting in July, we'll have the annual forum, which I imagine will be very similar in structure to our meeting tonight. That'll sort of be it, and that'll wrap up Dalvin and my term as chair and vice chair. I don't think we have any other special meetings scheduled right now, but if that does come up, we'll make sure everyone gets plenty of advance notice. Yeah, I think that's it until the annual meeting, the annual forum for me.
Yeah, and we just want to remind folks, and thank you to everybody who's done it already. The executive summaries, if there's any edits that you guys need to make before Shabab and I start to piece all of it together, please try to get that to us no later than the end of this week. If there's something that you forgot to capture on it, something that you want to make sure we get, just make sure to get us those edits by the end of the week, because Shabab and I will be turning the draft in to Carlos by the 25th. So we want to have enough time to get that in there. And then, yeah, now I want to open it up. I want to open up the floor. Raise your hand and we'll go around. How did you guys think this went? And things that you think we could improve upon for the next one? Mr. Ricks, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I guess one of my greatest concerns is that we did not appear to have reached the population that is considered to have the most arrests, which was the Black population. I mean, Captain Pruitt spoke, and that was it. So I'm concerned that we did not get part of the grassroots that we wanted to get to.
Okay, that's fair. Nadia, I saw your hand, and then I'll go to Ms. Branson.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that I think we definitely need to discuss. As I was listening to the testimony, it is evident that the people who we're trying to include in this process are not feeling included, because this is similar to what happened with SROs, right? We have these stories of this person that did this and did that. And I want to express the importance of mentorship again in our community, mentorship from adults to youth and young adults. There is a place for that. There is a place to continue those spaces. I don't think personally it's with a badge and a gun. I think there are other ways to do that, because a lot of the narratives around that support, that I heard today, were around these very specific instances. I also want to highlight, we did have folks who were undocumented that were on the call, which I think is very important. But I do want to emphasize that our collaboration with ICE stopped in 2019. So we grew up with MCPD very much collaborating with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That's a fact. There are numbers. When the kids, you saw the massive amount of media around kids being in jails. We had some in Howard County. So that's just a fact of our area, of our community. I don't want to dissipate that. There were arrests that led to deportations over broken taillights. That is factual. That has been recorded. I am very, very worried as to, and I want to support what Mr. Burdon said. We didn't have the folks that we wanted to include in this conversation. The other piece is that and I've said this before, there is a narrative around Black and Brown youth in our community that's incredibly dangerous. And it is very scary to hear folks in my community feel fearful of youth being youth. Whether that is being concentrated in a certain area, whether that is playing sports, whether that is walking around in their own neighborhoods. So I haven't heard about any training around what that looks like in the county. And I also want to highlight what Mr. Atkinson said, which is, we've absolved ourselves from what happened in what happened in Gaithersburg with Kwame Okran. And we can't absolve ourselves because those folks are trained by MCPD. And there's a large percentage that they were from the conversation that we've had with them. And so it is worrisome. There's still something to be said there. I also want to emphasize, and I've never shared this story because it's the story that our family has, and the main reason we've never communicated with police is that as soon as we arrived to this country, when we were trying to buy a van, there were a mass of police officers that stopped my dad, my mom, and my uncle for sitting in a car in a church parking lot. And I'm talking about this was within the first 3 months that they were here in this country. So you can imagine the massive amount of fear that that created. I grew up with a stalker, a legitimate stalker, that I didn't feel comfortable enough with calling the police. And that's just me. That's just one person in this community that is not fearful to speak on that behalf. So I want to emphasize that there were many, many stories that were not heard today because of the barriers that we have for people to speak freely, particularly about drug arrests. And I know this is something Eric has highlighted in the past. People can't come and say, I've been arrested for X, Y, and Z, and this was my experience. They have jobs, they have things that they want to protect. So I want to thank everybody for putting this together and everyone's input who might still be on the call, but I want to also emphasize the things that stood out to me today.
Ms. Branson, I'll go to you and then I'll go to Dr. Gaster.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, as public hearings go, there's often, we generally don't censor, who speaks, right? So people come, they speak, they might be on topic, they might not be, we give them their 3 minutes. I mean, that's a part of this process, right? So while I share the concern that we are not necessarily reaching the folks we want to reach, I think that is a problem that is easily surmounted. We all have networks, we all, so, and the county has a great public relations office. We've learned some lessons about what we've done and what we need to do for the next hearing, right? So, I don't, see this as being not worthy of our time. I see this as being a very good exercise, and I think we did learn a great deal today. And the question becomes whether what we've learned is what we can put into a package that gets to policy, right? I mean, because that's why we're here, right? So I think what it would require would be for us to review either the recording or the written statements. Personally, I'd rather read them than and to figure out where we can use what we've learned to further our work. So I thought this was, a really good first run, if you will. And the other thing I want to say is Dalvin, you said something about the executive summary and okay, I haven't seen any of that, so y'all got to send that back out, because this is like news to me. Maybe, granted, I've been sick for the past week, but things I could have missed things. So if you could send it back out, I'd appreciate it.
You got it.
And then and then finally, as to the topic, I think what we did genuinely hear were people's concerns that that enforcement does not align with the law, and that's sort of what we thought may be happening. And my only regret here is that we did not invite someone from the state's attorney's office, and we should definitely follow up with them once we arrive at the summary of what we learned here today. So but I think, everybody did a great job. And, I look forward to our next public hearing, which I hope is on pretextual stops, because I really want to talk about that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lee Francis. Dr. Gaster, you're up.
Yeah, so a few things. On outreach, I do wonder whether we can have a discussion about how to improve outreach. We got some very interesting material today, there's no doubt about it. But on the other hand, I was surprised that we didn't hear from some people who I thought, some organizations that I thought would be at the front of the queue, and they were completely absent. ACLU, NAACP, Jews United for Justice. I mean, I know that they probably had people watching, but I was really surprised that none of them submitted testimony or signed up to testify. And I think we need to improve our linkages to community people generally. So that's one item. I do think the general process here is that this is an opportunity for us to effectively hear the anecdotes that drive the stories, and that will provide power to the reports that we provide. So this is really about the stories. It's not about data. It's not trying to be necessarily representative. In fact, we don't know how representative the stories are. They're just stories, and we take them for themselves, and some of them were very powerful and very helpful. So that's the second thing. And the third is that I think it was Eric, or maybe it was somebody else earlier, who suggested, well, the next step is to have a meeting with MCPD, FOP, and the state's attorney. I think we need to hear from somebody why these arrests are being made and what the purpose is, and whether collateral damage is recognized. And if so, whether this falls under county policy as well as law. It may be legal to make these arrests. However, it may also be not county policy as expressed by its Democratic representatives to make these arrests. It would be very helpful to get a response from MCPD explaining why these arrests are made and what the positive contribution, if any, to the safety and security of the community is. I mean, we can't really see a connection there, but maybe there is one. And we should hear directly from the chief, I think, to explain what is going on, why this is going on, and what the benefit is. And if not, we should be stopping it.
It's a great point. And I will share with you guys that Shabab and I had talked about, and Robin, I think you nailed it. I think I even used those words. It's marrying the anecdotal with the data that we have, right? And we acknowledge that the data that we have, and Eric, kudos to you for breaking down the data that we did receive, and Dr. Gaster for adding more to it. We know that it's very easy sometimes to take data at face value, right? But we know that it's just a collection of numbers. You have to interpret what it means, right? And then now we've heard some stories from some community members that may not necessarily match the data that we've been receiving, right? And so I think what we want to come out of this, and I think, and what I'm hearing from you all, and I think you all agree, is what are we going to do now that we've asked community members to share these stories, right? And we have the data that we did receive that may be a little off. What are we going to do with that, right? And I think the next step is coming together to say, okay, if let's say that Robin's point, let's say it, and because Branson, as you were talking, I mouthed it's against the law as you were talking, because if it's happening and it's not supposed to be happening, then who do we speak to about getting it to stop, right? And if that's not the case, if they're being told that it's not against the law, then it's an interpret. And yeah, so we have to figure out where we're going to go with this, because now we have the two things. We have the anecdotal and we have the data that we received. Alicia, go ahead. I saw your hand up. Sorry.
I think Sergeant Brewer had their hand up first, but I was going to.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
I'll go after Kate.
Okay, thank you. I honestly don't remember who had it up first. I think I just kind of want to echo some of the stuff that Dr. Gaster said. One of the things from my point of view is that we still get calls for service. Like people are calling 911 or 279-8000 to say somebody outside my apartment complex is smoking weed. Somebody, my neighbor's smoking weed and I have kids in the apartment. So I'm trying to figure out how to reconcile the two of those, and they're community members as well. And I mean, that's a daily call that we get in Montgomery County, multiple calls. So I think there needs to be, and those people might not be ones that are coming to these hearings, unfortunately, either, but they are the community as well. And I think sometimes, somehow, because I do have my own opinion about simple possession and stuff like that, and the state is kind of making steps towards how to handle simple possession of marijuana. I understand that there should be conversation here as well. I'm not negating any of this conversation. But I just, and kind of to mirror what Nadia is saying too, is there's some stories that weren't heard, but on both sides, really. And I think I just ask that people, and I don't think anybody's discounting that, but there are stories on both sides because we do consistently get calls. And I think there needs to be some at least conversation or understanding or opinions even of what people think we should be doing when we get those calls, because it's not fair to discount another section of a community either. I think we need to respond. That is what we do, is respond to calls for service. So I think that needs to be kind of just something else to talk about, I think is really why I wanted to say it. Thank you.
And I will say, Sergeant Brewer, to that point, right? Like that's good information to have, right? Because if we have that, then we can say, well, this is what the community would like to see if that, and I'm just throwing that out there as an example, not saying that's exactly what we're going to do. Ms. Hudson, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all, you and Shabab, for your interview on the Channel 9 News regarding this meeting, this hearing today, as well as the WAMU public service announcement. That's great work. And then we need to do a lot more of those when we have our next hearing. And I think I shared with the H&D subcommittee, the hiring and discipline subcommittee, that, I think that this is important enough that we want to do more than just one hearing on this, if that's at all possible. I mean, I'm here for it. There's just so much more to hear. And Sergeant Brewer said from both sides, okay, well, from both sides, but definitely I would like to hear more, especially from those persons who are most impacted or have the most interaction with the police. And I've shared with the hiring and discipline subcommittee, I live in a fairly affluent neighborhood, and my neighbors who are pretty well-to-do, they smoke marijuana, okay? I'm sorry, they do. I'm not calling on them. I'm not gonna call the police on them, but my understanding was, maybe I don't understand very well regarding smoking in your home. I didn't know that people were calling the police on people smoking in their own home. But, again, I was a little bit disturbed as well, as to echo what Nadia was saying, by the narrative given by Ms. Munoz regarding her concern about people coming and playing basketball for 10 to 15 minutes on her pool. A little bit concerned. Eric had a very cogent question in response to that. I would like opportunities to have that kind of dialogue and exchange. And I would hope that MCPD, incorporates in their bias training some of this, and I've heard Captain Coquino say, we are cognizant that there are certain neighborhoods that they tend to be more racially biased. So when we receive calls from those neighborhoods, we go in with that understanding. I certainly hope that is a widespread understanding in training, because people are, interaction with the police and encounters with the police is where these opportunities, unfortunately, for escalation and turning into deaths. And unfortunately, many of those, far more of those, are of brown persons, Black people. So, I just want to put that out there, hopefully that is something that's considered as their training. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. And Eric, you had a point that I just saw your point, Sergeant Brewer, too. I think Eric's point too about what he just said regarding that they may not be arrests as we understand the term, right? And I think that's also important, right? I think Sergeant Brewer, you had a point in the fall about how sometimes we may all not be speaking the same language, right? And arrest, in my layman's person perspective may not be what you consider an arrest as an officer, right? And so I think that's a good point that Eric makes. I think also Eric's point regarding that there are some marijuana users who are indifferent to the right. I think that's also a really good point. And Sergeant Brewer, to your point, is the discussion that we have meetings in person. Yes. So now that some of the restrictions have been lifted, I think Montgomery County is one of top 5 in the country in terms of just low COVID rate. So yes, that is the plan. And I think in-person meetings would really help with us, like our work, but it also help with us being able to follow up with the community in real time, right? So say we did this hearing in person, like we could have gone to Ms. Munoz and just asked her some follow-up questions. I think it would have made it a little bit easier. So yes, that is the hope that once we should be good. Fingers crossed that after the 4th of July, we're all good to go. Fingers crossed. So I think I for one, I thought it went really well. I think that to Ms. Branson's point, I think it's true. This is a good first step. This is not the end of the work though, right? We know that this is not the end of our work because now we need to, I said at the beginning, right? Like, programs are fleeting, policy is power. We need to do something with the information that we're going to have. And it could be, and I will say, Eric, you made a point too about what we heard about some positive interactions with police. There were some things that were said in there that got my gears thinking in terms of like, oh, I was like, there's something there that we could use as a model for something, right? Like there's just, because there was a lot of good information that was even shared with that. And I think for us, it's how do we come out of this work with a safer community, right? With just a safer community where everybody can go home and nobody has to worry about something bad happening to them, right? That's really, that should be our goal at the end of the day. Does anybody have any questions before we let you guys go 19 minutes early?
I just wanted to say one more. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Hudson, and then Dr. Gaster. Yeah.
Vanessa Arterbury of the work group to address police accountability, she in her letter in their final submission stated they heard from over 90 citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That would be terrific if we could even approach, I'm assuming we can get more than that, but it's important to hear from the community.
Yeah, agreed. Dr. Gaster.
Really process. So it seems to me really that the next step should be for the subcommittee to hear from the police department, FOP, and the state's attorney general, and should ask them for a meeting, ask to put up a meeting on the calendar and ask them to appear. And if they won't, if they don't want to appear, find a different meeting time. But I'm just saying, don't be a hostage to the monthly meeting schedule. That's really something else. This is the subcommittee track, and there's no reason for us to delay until September or wherever, asking for answers to the questions raised so far.
Oh, we won't.
Why would we not have that for the whole committee instead of?
So our thought. So I'll answer that if that's fine. So our thought process is that because the need for this public hearing came out of a subcommittee, the subcommittee meetings are open to public anyway, so all of us could attend as is. But realistically, it should revert back to the subcommittee since they're the ones that spearheaded the effort to have the hearing. So it should revert back to the subcommittee so they can have the follow-up meeting. And all of us are welcome to attend. We can attend any subcommittee meeting, but I think it's important that the subcommittee take the lead on the next steps.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that when you're talking about bringing in other resources that could change some of the dialogue, then I think that the whole committee should be involved in hearing that.
Well, you're here. You're listening right now. This is a subcommittee meeting.
I don't consider this a subcommittee meeting. I consider this as the.
So I'll clarify, Mr. Ricks. This is a subcommittee meeting. The only reason Shabab and I chaired it is because the subcommittee asked us to. So that's the only reason we chaired it. But this isn't our monthly meeting. It's a subcommittee meeting. Yeah.
It was
So
advertised as a public hearing.
Correct, but it's a public hearing organized by the subcommittee. It wasn't the whole pack. We didn't start the process. The subcommittee started the process, and then in turn, the only reason I moderated it is because we were asked to. But ultimately, and if the subcommittee felt comfortable moderating it, they would have moderated it themselves. Yeah. So the process should be, in theory, because it originated with the subcommittee should be the ones to take the next step. And all of us are more than welcome to attend subcommittee meetings. The schedules are posted on the website. We can attend any of them, any or all of them.
And just to add, we're not going to take any votes here. This is an informational meeting. So, you know, it has no, the only reason to push to have the subcommittees doing this is that way we can work in parallel, right? We can have different subcommittees working on different issues at the same time effectively by asking for inputs. Otherwise, we have a long train that's working down one track, and I don't think that's what we want to do.
Agreed. Yeah, and we talked about this before. We talked about the need to, I don't want to use the word accelerate because that's not the premise I'm going for, but the need to work a little bit quicker, and this gives us the opportunity to do that. So yeah.
Can I say something about, like,
of course you can, Carlos. Of course you
can. And process, because I'm a little confused as well. I'm sorry. So for the next, so Shabab and Dalvin, you mentioned another hearing, like the public forum in July. I would strongly suggest that we don't do it in July, just because, you know, I've heard a lot of everyone say like outreach was an issue, right?
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a very tight timeline again. Like, I think that's why not that many, I mean, we had a pretty good turnout considering that this all took place in less than a month.
Right.
And, you know, I did outreach to the Latino community. I asked other folks within the council to reach out to their networks, and, you know, it worked reasonably well. But I think to really get a lot more attendance, which is, I think, the point of these hearings, is we need a bit more lead time. So just something for you all to consider. Yeah.
I think that's valid. Madam Chair, what do you think?
Completely agreed. Yeah. Well, we can push the forum back.
A lot of the county goes on vacation during July and August, and I mean, you know, they're not here. They're not here.
Not just the county, Mr. Ricks. Outside is opening back up, man. I'm on that first plane smoking.
Yeah. And with regards to coming back into to have like live meetings, I'm pretty sure, it's my understanding that boards, commissions, and committees, they meet at the council office building. Right now, while I don't think there's any restriction on the amount of people, there are still like security regulations where we would have to come to the door to get every guest back and forth, but that is over starting September 1st. So if you all think about having your first in-person meeting, I would say target September for that.
That's super helpful. Yeah, that's good. That's good to know, because then that means realistically we only have 2 more months of virtual stuff, and then we can go from there. Okay, awesome. So go ahead.
If we're gonna push the annual meeting back, seems to me that open space in the calendar for us to pursue the next subcommittee meeting.
I think so. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Nadia, go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Just wanted to also, I know there's a lot of anxiety around all this gathering of information that we've had all year round, like what do we do next outside of the report and things like that. So I wanted to just let commissioners know, and obviously Carlos and Susan will be sending an email out to you all just to have some clarity around how we communicate these policies to the council. Once you know the subcommittees have referred them to PAC and to the full commission, and then once the full commission votes on whatever policies, regulations we might come up with, there's no clear path. We don't know if there's a council member that introduces. Does the PAC like how does that even work? There's very little understanding for that in terms of process, because we want to know, okay, if we have a finding, what do we do with that, and how do we, as Ms. Branson was saying, how do we suggest policy at this point? Because we have a ton of ideas now, and I'm sure that they're going to be more clear as we move along. So Carlos and Susan, just expect an email from us in the next hour or so, just to see if we can set up a meeting, sorry, so that we can set up a meeting time. Won't take more than 15-30 minutes. Wanted to let the commissioners know, so you know that's what we're doing in order to have a clear process for you all as we move forward within the next year. I also want to we're going to ask about meeting with the council. We've had Tom Hooker attend one of our meetings, but I've not seen any other council members attend. So I just want to make sure that our commission is taken as seriously as is said at council meetings, because we're highly elevated, but I haven't heard our memos or anything be read out loud or quoted or anything, even when the SRO issue was at the table. So I want to make sure that we're all being heard at the council as well. And that's not to fault of Carlos or Susan or any council staff. I think there just wasn't clarity on the process.
Sounds good. All right, Sydney was here. Yes, Eric, Sydney was here. He did pop in to this one.
In the cat, yeah.
Yep. Does anybody have any last, Sergeant Brewer, yes.
Just when's our next meeting? Do we have one on the schedule already? Just because
No.
vacations, as somebody mentioned vacation.
Yeah. So our next meeting was actually supposed to be the public forum, but we're going to move it now. So just give us until the end of the week to send an email out to folks. We'll circle back and let you guys know for sure. Just because since we were counting on that meeting, since we're going to move that. So, but by the end of the week for sure, by Friday close of business, you guys will have. We'll try to get you guys a schedule for at least the remainder of the year, like through December, so folks know. That way, at the very least, we know like, okay, we're going to meet this day, this time, et cetera, et cetera. And to Eric's point, because I think this is a good one, the next forum may be on a Saturday afternoon. Like that just may be easier to do that, right? The next public hearing, because maybe that's how you get more folks, right? Instead of doing it on a Monday night, you do it on a Saturday from 1 to 3, and you offer food or whatever. Food always brings people out. They come out for everything. Do you guys have any last things to say before we let you guys go? No, listen, you guys are awesome. You guys have done amazing work. Nadia and I could not be more prouder to work with you all. We know that a lot of these conversations, they are difficult and they are contentious, but we really believe that we can come to a point where we can make things better for the folks that we're tasked with serving. So thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, and look out for an email from Nadia and I before the end of the week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.